Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, Menachot stop test Vav. We are going to begin on Yud Daled Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. Says the Mishnah. Nitmas achas menachalos. So this is referring to the shtei halechem, and let's say one of the two breads became tamei, not both. Oh, echad min hasadachim. Let's say one of the bezichin, one of the levaina, on the for the shtei halechem, for the lechem uponim rather, that became tamei. Only one of them. So Rabbi Yehuda omer shneim yotzel beis hasreifa. The reality is, even though only one became tamei, you got to burn them both. Why? Shein carbon sibor choluk, because you can't. It can't be divided. It can't be split up. Right? It cannot be divided. So even though only one became tamei, so that's enough that it becomes the whole thing is a problem. Actually, no. The tamei one, of course, you have to burn, but the tahor one you could eat. Fine. So we'll have to understand this machlok. It says anyway. So the whole machlok is if, let's say, one of them became tamei before the zrika of the kvasim, says Rashi, nitmus achas min hachalos shel atzeres, or v'lechem hapanim lifnei haktaris bezichen, before you were makter it. So that's when the machlokas is b'may plegi. Oh, so one second. So machlokas of nezrika. So avol achar zrika, if it became tamei after it was already done, diver hakol hatami b'tumasa b'atar yachol. At that point already, like the whole avoda was done, so therefore if you became tamei, you could still eat the other one. So if nezrika b'may plegi, what is their machlokas? Amar papa, but sits maratza l'chilos kamiflagi. We know the tzitz that the Kohen Gadol wore was actually maratza for tuma, and therefore the question is, do we say that the tzitz is maratza for it, and therefore the other one can still be eaten? Rabbanon Savri had tzitz maratza l'chilos. Right? It says Rashi al tumas achilos kohanim. If let's say the Kohen would have eaten while he was tamei, mahavi zrika shenizrika love zrika milayhu. Avol tamei lo mishtari b'achila. Fine. Rabbi Yehuda Savar ein hatzitz maratza l'chilos. So that's the machlokas is the tzitz is maratza. So Armali Rav Huda Bereda Rav Nasan Rav Papa. What do you mean? V'ha'oilin when it v'ha'oilin says Rashi the dibir hakol tzitz maratza l'hatoma. Everyone holds it is maratza. Shenaga b'oilin l'mizbeach. If it touches it while it's going up to the mizbeach, that tzitz maratza al ha'oilin, which is the karbanos bezichen. So uplegi, and yet they argue the sanya nitim echem and bezichen. If one of the frankincense become tamir, behudo emer shteim yasu batoma, then both of them are done with toma. Lefi shein darko tzibor shein carbon tzibor l'chalik. It's not divided. Chacham armim hatame betumasa v'hatar betumasai betaharasai. Fine. Furthermore, Omer Rav Ashi Tashmar Behuda Omer Afilu Shevet Echad Tamei. Even if all you had is one shevet that was tamei, however, b'chol hashvatim tahirin, and all the other shvatim are tahar, yasu b'tuma. So the din is that it is allowed to be done b'tuma. Says Rashi, what's this talking about? By Pesach. B'yud dalad b'nisan b'sfir Rabbi Yehuda shevet echad ikrish kahal. So the question is, what's the din if there's a din tuma? So he said hilkach daichet tuma v'yasu kulan b'tuma imoi. So the din is the only time is a Pesach Sheni is when everyone else is tahar. But if you have the majority of the people are tama anyway, or let's say in this case one shevet, that's enough that everyone could do it b'tuma. Vishin karbana sibur choluk, because once the tzibur can do it, so therefore everyone can do it. B'hacha my hatzitz maratza ika has nothing to do with it. Sits, but the time Yom Ravina Tashma nitmas echad min hachalei. So achas min hasadachim. Our Mishnah says clearly, Yehuda Omer shneim yatzu lebeis hasreif lefi shein carbon sibur choluk. It says the reason is not because of the tzitz, it's because it cannot be divided. If it's true, like that which was the sheet of Rav Papa, that the reason is because B'tzitz Maratzel Achilois, if that's what their machlokus is, Vishin Tzitz Maratzel Achilos B'boili. Ella, Rav Yochanan Lomot Orachu B'piv, Shor Bihuda She'in Karben Sibur Cholok. Again, obviously it's not because the tzitz is maratza, but it's because you can't split up the karbanos. So therefore, as we said, the machlokas of our Mishnah is whether or not lifnei zrika, one became tamei, do you have to burn the whole thing, or do you say no? And that's it. Question 13. Nitmas echad achas menachalos, or echad menasadalim. Rabbi Yehuda says both of them have to be burned. Shein karben sibur cholok. Elul beis nafgiminas. What are the two differences that we see? The ein karben sibur cholok. So we said in the case of nitma echad min hamazichin, if one of the mazichin became tamei, shneim yasu b'tuma, so then both of them can go out b'tuma. Or shevet echad, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is called a kahal. Nitma, if one shevet became tamei, yasakum a pesach b'tuma, then everyone's able to bring the karban pesach on the first pesach b'tuma. Okay, which is again a pretty big chiddush. Question TA24, which you have to hold cup a little bit to get this answer clean. It says, what are the three places that we find in karben sibur cholok? So, of course, one is our Mishnah, which is TA24. Our Mishnah of Nitma Achas Min Achalois or Echa Min Hasadarim, Yehuda Oimer Shneihim Yotzel Beis Esreif, even though one became Tameh. And then the other two, TA24, so I wrote, since one shevet is considered a kehila, so if they could do it, so too by the rest of the Jewish people, they could bring the karban pesach. And also when it comes to the din of the bazichin, it says nitma echad min bazichin. If one of them became tamei, yasu shnei batumos, then both of them could be brought batuma. Okay. Fine. So that's TA24, TB27. Same question. Let's see how I did. Yudam Beis, Tesvav Aleph, TB27. Let's see what I wrote in a second. Just mark this up. So Shevet Echad Shenitma V'Loi Kol Hakahal Afal Pikein Asu Pesach Karban Pesach B'Pesach Rishon. Okay, that's one. Ein Mishnei Zichen El Echad Mehen Ein, I don't know what that word means. Ein Matama or Tamei Bazichen. So we say that the din is that Yasu Batuma, right? Even if one of them was Tamei, Yasu Batuma. And I wrote Shtei Lechem V'Kevet V'Kisei Aseres Shenitma Echad Min Achalois. Okay, all right. That's the Shtei Halechem Kisei Aseres. Okay, okay, that's good enough. All right, let's keep on moving. Let's see the next Mishnah. Hatoida. So as we already saw this in yesterday's daf, the karban toida is also accompanied by breads, 40 breads, 4 different kinds. So a toida could be mefageles es halechem, because the toida, the karban, is the ikr, and therefore the bread comes along afterwards. V'alechem einu mefageles a toida. So the Mishnah explains this. Let's say sheichet is a toida. You're the shechita of the karban toida, but your intention is and your intention is to eat the karban tomorrow. So hiva halechem mefalgen. Even though you had no intention about the lechem at all, but your intention was only incorrectly about the karban toida itself. So therefore, also the bread is considered to be pigel, and therefore a person would eat it would be chayv kares. Le'echol min halechem l'machar. If your intention was just about the bread, So halechem mafugel. So in fact, the bread is considered pigel, v'hatoida en mafugelas, but it doesn't go back to the carbon itself, and therefore, if a person would eat it, you would not be chayv kares. For that matter, hakvasim mefalgen es halechem, halechem and mefalgen es hakvasim. So again, on Shavuos you have the shtei halechem, you have the shtei kvasim and the shtei halechem. So the ikr is the karbanos, not the breads. Ketzad hasheichet es hakvasim le'echel mehen lo to eat from the kvasim tomorrow. Heim v'halechem mefalgen. So the din is that even the bread is pigel. However, your intention is le'echel es halechem machar, then halechem mafugol v'kvasim ein mafugolin. Okay. So my time. What is the reason that we say that it's only by the carbon taida but not by its bread? The bread is also called a carbon taida. The lechem is like called carbon. So it should be the other way around. Even if you have an intention about the bread, it should also work against the carbon too. So holo kasha lechem ikri taida. Taida lo ikri lechem. Lechem is called a taida, but the taida is not called lechem. So it's a one-way street. The carbon taida is not called bread, but the bread is called taida. So el hadikatani, that which we said, hakvasim mefalgin es halechem, but halechem mefalgin es hakvasim. So lechem, when it comes to bread, heicha di ikri kvasim. Where do we find that when it comes to the kvasim? In other words, that could be a good answer regarding the toda, but we don't find this that the shtei halechem are linked and they're actually called kvasim. Well, that can't be the reason then, because the second case of our Mishnah doesn't fit. Elolav hainu time lechem glal taidim and taida glal the lechem. So basically, again, lechem glal the kvasim and kvasim glal the lechem. So basically, the ikr is the carbon and not the bread. Utsricha. Diashmin and taida hasamhu dechim afag lechem. If you only had pig on the bread, that lo mafag taida, that's not going to work on the carbon. Mishum deloi husku zeh lazeh betenufa, because they're not. The waving is not done together. The taida is not waved together with the breads. Of a kvasim de husku zeh lazeh betenufa. That when it comes to the shtei lechem, shtei kvasim, it's done at the same time, so they're kind of more linked. So you would think that if you did pigel on the bread, it would work for the kvasim, also be pigel on that. No. So Bomin Rebbe Lezer Rab Hashaykhat is a taida. A person has the carbon taida and he shechs it, but his intention is le'echel kazayis mimena, to eat a kazayis from it, umilachma, and from its bread. L'machar mahu mahu, what's the din laflugi taida lo meboili. To say that there's an issue of pigel, that's not my question on the carbon, because hashta kulu malachma. Now, if let's say the whole thing is from its bread, the kazayas, lo mefalga mimena umalachma baboy. So if let's say by the taida which is not pigel, so then from its bread there's no question. So the taida would definitely not be pigel in that case. So kikam aboyle laflugi lechem. Do we say that the bread is pigel? Mi mitzdarfa taida laflugi lechem uloy. So because in fact it does say you added bread in the statement. So that's the question. So amrulei af bezu halechem mafugul v'taida in mafugelas. Even also in this case it doesn't matter, even though you said umilachma. Nonetheless, only the lechem is pigel, but not the carbon. Then we know that if you have a machshav about the carbon taida, that becomes pigel onto the bread too. So ein mispagel, but it doesn't. The bread doesn't become pigel all by itself. So habal lefagel lo pigel ein udin shel mispagel. So mi amrin and kavachaymer ki hagav. You can't say such a kavachaymer v'sanya. Masa be'echad. There was a story as we continue to test vav amid beis. Shizar karma shel chaveroi, that he was planting from his own to a vineyard of his friend Smador, which as Rashi says, kfar chantu anavim, that the grapes were already like properly finished. He said that you are not allowed to have grapevines over there. But even though he asur the zrayim, the seeds, he mocked the gefanim, the grapes, the grapevines. So habo aser, that he wanted to aser, below aser, but it still doesn't work. Din shol yis aser. So the question is, why? Clearly, there's no kavachayim that can be made, because why would he matter the gefanim? So hachi hashta hasam kanvus veluf astra Torah. Says Rashi, these different types of seed, or even legumes, are aser b'kerem ein zeroim kala sheish lahem sharish. It has roots. Denan haisa sadehu zerua kanvus loiv lo yehe zerua al gabehem shehein oisais l'shol shanim shar zerayim and rabbananhu the asiri. Hi, the Abidi Surah, this person who planted the seeds be'isr, Kansur Rabbanan. Hi, the Lo Abidi Surah, Lo Kansur Rabbanan. So it's just totally on whether the person didn't isr, whether or not they kanasim or not. Ella hacha lema kavachaymer, but maybe taka we did say the kavachaymer. The ve'ika demasni la kvasim. Some actually bring it down regarding the kvasim. Ba'mine rebelez emirav hasheichet es kvasim la'echel kazais behen u'malachman mahu. Mahu aflugi kvasim ulokim aboili. To say that there didn't piggle on the kvasim is no question. Tashtakul malechem umafalgi, that if you have an intention on the bread, it's not going to be mafagel on the keves mehen umelachmon miboy. So certainly it won't. Kika maboili aflugi lechem. What's the din on the bread? Mi mitzdarfi kvasim laflugi belechem olos. Or malay apazu halechem afugol vakvasim in mafugalin. The kvasim are not mafugel, but the bread is. Why we say that it is lemekavachaymer maha mafagel enemis pagel to habola fagel v'lo pigel and it inshul this is pagel. So maybe the bread shouldn't be migel. So mi amrin kavachaymer ki hagav nevasani masa be'achad shazar karma shel chaveroi. So he planted in this vineyard, and maybe it's an issue of kilayim. So we made a distinction between the seed and the gofanim. Ramai lemekavachaymer. Maha aser ain't a weiser habal aser v'lo aser ain't a din shel yisaser. So zerayim should be aser. So hachi hashta hasam kanvus v'luf aser Torah. These different legumes. Shar zerayim and a rabbananhu. Yes, Siri. The other ones are only aser rabbanan. So hi the Avadi Surah, the guy who did the iser kansur rabbanan. And that's why we say it's us for him, the seeds. However, the law of Surah lu kansur rabbanan. The one who has the grapevines didn't do anything wrong, so we don't kanas. So manim asala atayda koshekena kavasim. Manim asala kavasim who dehusku zel with tenufa. Maybe the only time it's a question is because the kvasim are somehow linked to the shtei halechem because they're both waved together. So therefore, one could make the other one piggle possibly. However, since there's no connection to the two, so then the din would not be the same. Rabbi Abba Zuti Boyula Hachi Bomine Rabbi Lezim Rabba Sheikhet as a keves. Person who checks the carbon le'echel kazais mechaveroi uses the language from its friend l'machamahu. Chavero keves mashma. It's mashma another keves. Mafagil, so it's nothing. Maybe the friend is referring to its bread, and therefore, as we said in our Mishnah, if you have a pickle thought about the kvasim, it'll also work on the bread. You shechted one of the kvasim who piggle. Only it is piggle the chavero kosher. The other one is kosher. Alma chavero keves mashma. It's not talking about bread. It says the language of chavero must be talking about a keves. Dilma de payrish v'omer chavero keves. Maybe it's because he explicitly said the word my friend, my counterpart, the keves. But if he didn't say the word keves, maybe chavero taka is actually going on the bread, and therefore that doesn't answer our question, and that's where we will stop. Ad kan. Let's see question 14. Mas me'achad shazar karma shel chavero uva ma'islam nechacham v'asu hazirayim. So Ketzad ze'as v'ze'mutter. So it says, Lo hayu azrayim min ha'isa kilayim b'deraisa. It wasn't really deraisa, it was only derbanan. Kanser rabbanan ba'al hazrayim d'abedisur. The one who planted the seeds did the iser, so it's on him. The albal gafanim d'lo v'lomidi. This other guy didn't do anything wrong, so therefore we're not going to kanas him. That's why we said the gafanim are mutter. Question TA 25, maybe. Lamandi Armein Mafalga Machatsi Mater can go and come as well by Namadin. Heicha the Pili Bekamitza or Bamatin Kli or Bahoylacha or Bakataira. I don't think we did that. Okay, so I don't think we had that. TB 28. Pigul Bahazois Shibifnim Adkan.